All ahead. Good morning. Welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. I'd ask how you're all feeling, but I think I kind of know because I'm pretty much feeling the exact same way this morning. And it's always pretty much feeling it is always the same after any defeat with Celtic. Martin O'Neill yesterday spoke about the fact that the fans, and he spoke about the fans, and he was goaded into it by certain parts of the media, especially Radio Scotland, goaded into the fact that was it a fan meltdown? Like there was about 20, 30 guys maximum having a go at the board. There's don't know, it was always going to happen when we get a defeat towards this stage of the season. Martin O'Neill said yesterday, there's never been a team that has won the league having lost 8 games a season. Never. In Scotland, anyway. And it's not going to happen this year. And there's going to be we can dream, but I'm sorry, it's a drop mic moment for me. It's don't know. Can Celtic realistically win the last 7 games? Before we go on Neil, let's look over the season's results and try and see if there's any hope of a reality of this team winning 7 games in a row, because there isn't. They've never managed it all season. And when you look back to pre-season, we got off to a really bad start in pre-season. The writing was on the wall in the summer. We knew the writing was on the wall in the summer. At the time, Brendan Rodgers knew the writing was on the wall in the summer. He and Callum McGregor publicly asked the board to get in players. We started off pre-season, Queen's Park, 1-0 win. And then we went to Cork City over at Ireland. Celtic doing their little, we're going to Ireland thing, and we beat Cork City 2-1. We then go over to Portugal, and we get beat by a Portuguese team. And Brendan Rodgers says, look, it's pre-season, even though the pre-season before was absolutely fantastic. We then beat Sporting, and you're thinking, okay, there's maybe a bit of hope for this team. We then play Newcastle at Celtic Park, and the Newcastle team were only 5 days into their pre-season. 5 days into their pre-season. And Celtic fans were quite euphorious about the fact that there was a full stadium, a full stand of Newcastle United fans, and Celtic beat them 4-0. We then play Ajax, and we get beat. Al Ahly, we play them, we draw. But then we get to the business end, and you think, right, this is where we start to lay down a marker. And we started the season with a 1-0 win. We beat Aberdeen 2-0. We beat Falkirk 4-1. And then there was the wake-up call, because before the Falkirk game, Kara Almaty had played a team that Celtic had beaten the previous season in the Champions League. Quite convincingly, 5-1 we managed to beat them in the Champions League. The opening game of the Champions League the season before, Celtic demolished the team 5-1. Kara Almaty played the exact same way as they did against Celtic the 2 previous games, and they took it to late on and they won the game. Set up a game against Celtic. Celtic weren't prepared for it. The writing was on the wall. Celtic weren't prepared to go all that way to near enough China. And I think we were 2 hours from China at Kara Almaty game. And the players and the management had no idea. It was like they had no idea. They hadn't watched the game. They definitely hadn't watched the game that me and so many other people watched of Kara Almaty in the qualifiers the game before. And Celtic managed to get a draw at Celtic Park. A draw at Celtic Park. We then go on and beat Livingston 3-1, 3-0. And then we get another draw with Kara Almaty, and we go out on penalties. And it kind of set us up for the season, because we then get a draw at Ibrox. You're thinking, okay, that's maybe a good result considering that we've no strikers. And then we go to Kilmarnock and we get a 2-1 win against Kilmarnock. We have Partick in the cup game, and we get a good result against Partick. It's always good going there. It was a nice ground, Partick Thistle ground. I like it when Celtic used to go there. And then we get back to the European context, and we draw 1-1 in the opening game of the Europa. You're thinking, okay, away from home, good result. We then come back with a little bit of a European hangover, and we draw 0-0 at Celtic Park again. The fans are starting to get a bit boisterous at this time. By the end of September, Brendan Rodgers is all over the media complaining about this, that, and the next thing. You know, and that was the beginning of where we are this season, was that draw to Hibernian. We then lose in the Europa 2-0 to Braga, and Motherwell, we beat them 3-2 in the October. We then get beat by Dundee, a team that we play in 2 weeks' time in the league. We get beat by Dundee up in Dundee. Yesterday was the first time since the 1990s that Celtic had been beaten twice in a season by Dundee United. It was the first time ever that Martin O'Neill had been beaten by Dundee United. He'd never been beaten by Dundee United his first term at Celtic. We then go back into Europa and we win 2-1. We then get beat by Hearts 3-1. We beat Falkirk 4-0. We then beat Rangers in the Premier Sports. Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill comes into Celtic after Brendan Rodgers disappeared. And we managed to beat Rangers at Hampden. Was it? I think it was at Hampden, wasn't it? We then go into Midtjylland. They absolutely demolish us in the Europa. A little club in the grand scale of European football, a small club, tidy little ground. You know, not a lot of money to spend on players, but they do fantastically well and they spend their money wisely. Celtic then, under Martin O'Neill, then going to beat Kilmarnock 4-0. We then lose to St Mirren. No, sorry, we beat St Mirren. We lose to Feyenoord. I was thinking about the other game against St Mirren. I'm way ahead of myself here. We beat Feyenoord under Martin O'Neill. We beat Hibernian under Martin O'Neill. And then we come to crazy time. We come into November. And whilst the scorelines weren't emphatic, we weren't thumping teams, we got the job done. December. What can you say? December was a complete nightmare. The board, all over the place, the board made a decision that they thought it would be correct. By bringing in a manager now, they'd even been saying that, look, it wasn't ideal to bring in a manager in at this time of the season. But for the long-term vision of the club, you needed to bring a manager in. There was no point in leaving it to the end of the season, because you're only putting things off. Whatever we think of Martin O'Neill, whatever happens between now and the end of the season, there's a shitload of stuff to be sorted out in the summer. And we all know that. The Wilfred Nancy tenure was an absolute disaster. Getting beat by Dundee United, getting beat by St Mirren, Premier Sports Cup, getting beat by Roma, getting beat by Motherwell, and then finishing off Wilfred Nancy's tenure, getting beat by Rangers. Martin O'Neill came back to Celtic. A lot of Celtic fans say we should have kept Martin O'Neill. Maybe we should have, but at the same time, we're still going to go into if you kept Martin O'Neill to the end of the summer, there is no guarantee that we would be top of the league with these players. That's more than apparent. More than apparent. When you look at the way that Martin O'Neill was brought back to the club by Dermot, personal phone call both times, says to me that the man who has 34% shares in Celtic does not believe that the hierarchy at Celtic has the capability to make the correct decisions when it comes to it. And he's got to pull them out the fire. Martin O'Neill came back to Celtic, gets a 4-0 win against Dundee United, beats Falkirk. Auchinleck Talbot, terrible game. Celtic just get a 2-0 win. Second half, we pulled it out of the bag. Bologna, 2-2. You're thinking, great, we should have kept Martin O'Neill. Hearts, you've got to say that we were unlucky with that Hearts game. Celtic could have won that. Utrecht, a win away in Europe, and at home in Europe against Utrecht. And it gets a little bit better for Celtic going on. But ultimately, it was the same squad of players. Martin O'Neill then took the Celtic squad to Stuttgart, and we get a win away against Stuttgart, who were doing not bad in the German league at the time. I think they were fifth in the German league. When you look at the players that have left Celtic over the last couple of years, we haven't replaced them with the similar quality. That's more than apparent, and it's sticking out like a sore thumb. Getting beat by Stuttgart, winning away at Stuttgart, getting beat at home 4-1, and then winning away 1-0. That goes back to February. Stuttgart at home, Kasper Schmeichel cost us. When you put everything together in perspective, and you look at the fact that we are struggling to get results. March, 2-2 against Rangers, 2-1 against Aberdeen, 0-0, we win on penalties, 3-1 versus Motherwell. So much for us coming together at the end of the season. Yet Martin O'Neill says it will only take 7 wins for us to win the league. But in the same breath, there's no team has won the league having lost the amount of games that we have lost as a club. And then we've got the summer to come. Can Martin O'Neill pull the magician's hat? Can he pull a rabbit out of a hat? Can he do the impossible and win the final 7 games? That's the big question this morning. And it was interesting last night that as soon as the players had got back, a lot of the players jetted off. Obviously, some players are jetted off to go to their national teams. But players like Benji Arthur, I don't think he's playing for his national team, but he jetted off also. He was spotted at Glasgow Airport yesterday, getting out of Scotland as soon as he could. And that was only because the only reason I know that is because there was guys getting flights back to Belfast after the game and they bumped into him. But anyway, can Celtic do it? One more slip up and Martin O'Neill says season's done and dusted. I don't think that's the end of it, said Martin O'Neill. I think that we're still in it. But you're probably right. We have to win the remaining 7 games. There is absolutely no room now. We got Arthur on loan. He's on a 6-year contract at Brentford. Yeah, there's no chance. There's no chance we are getting him. There's no option to buy. I was crying out for a change of formation, bolster midfield, play the best players. We don't have a decent 3 to fill forward line. And that's been the story of the season, isn't it? Even if we win the last 7 games, it doesn't mean we'll win the league. Hearts are still 5 ahead. I think there's a bit of reality check this morning from Celtic, isn't there? From the fans, definitely. Do you mean whatever happens, I mean, I still think that Celtic can win the cup. Don't know. Do you know that the biggest issue with Celtic this season is loan players? There's far too many loan players in the squad. Far too many players that are just here for experience. Far too many players that are here to just get some game time. That's never what Celtic has been about. Do you know, having every single player that we brought in the last window on loan to the end of the season, yes, it's a kind of to help Martin O'Neill out, but ultimately they are nowhere near as good as what we need to get. And as it remains, you know, the fans, the Green Brigade, the boys shouting at the board yesterday will not have helped their cause to get back into the ground. The atmosphere at Celtic Park on game days has been woeful all season. You know, the board now have a free reign to do as they please over the next couple of weeks. You're not going to get them speaking to anybody. Not a chance. They won't care. But anyway, right, get me some of your comments this morning. Um, but you'll still have Celtic fans renewing their season tickets next year, feeding the board money, and then expecting change. There's two ways to look at that, because if we're down 40 million from Champions League this year, so our revenue is going to be a way down. We're a way down on revenue for merchandise sales this year. If we then hold back more money, and this is it's a crazy way of looking at it, but if we then hold back more money by not renewing season tickets, and say it goes back to like the Ronnie Dyler year, where there's a big massive section of Celtic Park closed off, isn't that just? I know that we want rid of these board members, but isn't that just we're hurting the club even more? You know, we're on a downward spiral. We are really on a downward spiral. You know, the glory days of winning trebles and everything, that's gone from Celtic. There is no longer, it's no longer a target at the start of the season for Celtic to win a treble. The target at the beginning of next season has to just to try and get back and win the league. Thoughts of trebles and everything from the fans. We really need. This is the biggest reality check that we've had since Ronnie Dyler came to the club. No, nobody expected Ronnie Dyler to win trebles and stuff. The Celtic board have got a massive decision to make in the summer. Who ultimately becomes the next Celtic manager, and the fans will look on whether there is further. There will be more protests if Celtic drop 2 more points. The league is done and dusted. If we get to the game at Hampden and the unthinkable happens and we lose the game at Hampden against St Mirren for a second time in a season when they're playing absolutely woeful, I think that there will be massive protests at Celtic Park. But it's too little too late, isn't it? You know, the board have got away with the the board have got away with it this season. Completely got away with it. Anyway, the blame is Dermot Desmond and the board. It's very true. Finishing 1 point above the Huns is all the board care about. Yeah, it's all the board care about. It's all they've ever cared about for years. I mean, they made it more than. Why is there a fucking drilling? It's all they've cared about for years. You know, it's never been about trying to achieve stuff in Europe. I mean, the money from the European side of football, whilst it was good at the time, you know, the board will say, well, that money's been good because it helped us put the money into Lennoxtown, which will give Celtic a return in 10, 15 years. That's no good. Celtic need a return for stuff now. It was never about trebles, Baz. We were a brilliant football team that could win trebles until the scumbags board low ambitions cost us dearly. And I think if you asked, well, if you just Scott Brown, Brendan Rodgers, Callum McGregor, and everybody, Brendan Rodgers during that era used to sit down with the players at the beginning of the season, the sort of first week in training before they went off on their pre-season training camp, and they would set targets to win the treble, win the league by X amount of points, score X amount of goals. That was the ambition. It was total domination. It wasn't just, let's just win the league. It was complete domination. And that was set out, and that was the mindset of the players from the very first week in pre-season training. And when you dilute the mindset of the players, because the players that come in later on in the transfer window haven't sat down with the players at that meeting. They haven't. They then don't have the same mindset of the players. The players that come in the winter window weren't there in the summer. They don't have. They're coming into. They need to learn that mindset. They weren't, and I think that having that meeting has always been important for Celtic because it does set the ambitions, the mindset, the enthusiasm, the togetherness, and all that's been missing this season. Because we brought in players late in the window. Yeah, I mean, you can pick out certain points. I mean, bringing in so many loan players in this window, and it looks like that there's one player that we brought on loan. It doesn't look like that we're going to see Julian Araujo back at Celtic. The fact that he's went down to his parent club to however he managed to injure himself. It's obviously the type of injury where his parent club have went, nah, it's going to take too long at Celtic. Bring him home and we'll recuperate him here. If Julian Araujo doesn't come back to Celtic, it's fine. We will have Alistair Johnston. It's just the way that this season has went. It's just been absolutely bonkers. The season isn't all over yet. I mean, if it comes to it, I would rather get to the final at Hampden and win that. It's always good to It's always good to win the Scottish Cup, even if you've lost the league, because when you win the Scottish Club and the Scottish Cup, you go into the summer with a little bit of, that's okay. When you lose the league and you lose the Scottish Cup, you've got a summer of discontent. And Celtic, brace yourself for a summer of discontent. No matter what the board aren't even going to come out and thinking that the board are going to come out and say something this week. They're not going to say anything. It's an international break now. The closer that we get to season ticket renewal, that's when the proverbial shit will hit the fan. As soon as we try and sell season tickets, wait and see the reaction then. And then Celtic will put out the deadline. And they'll say, this is the deadline for season ticket holders. There's thousands on the waiting lists. Fuck off. And then they'll go, oh, we're going to extend the deadline, and they'll extend it by a couple of weeks to try and get people to sign up for season tickets. You'll get an amount of people that will go and just renew their season tickets automatically. You'll have people that pay by direct debit that just keep the direct debit going, and that will renew automatically. And then you'll get fans that go, no, Celtic, F you, I'm not renewing my season ticket until you give us a clear way of going forward. Until you tell us who the manager is, till you tell us and come out in public what we're spending, what's the ambition of the club. They haven't done it so far, and what makes us believe that this club will do that going forward? There is nothing to suggest that this club's going to have a dramatic mindset shift and come out like Father O'Reilly to the altar and proclaim everything's going to be fine and proclaim this is what we're going to do and say that this is the ambition of the club. They can say that this is the ambition of the club all they want. We know the reality. We know the reality. We can lose those 7 games if we believe. Yeah, there's more chance of Celtic losing the 7 games. Hope Morocco comes back in the squads when we're in the cover. It's looking very, very doubtful that Morocco will be back from some of the noises that's coming up. That's 100% Rogers' display yesterday. We deserve all that's coming. Utter show from top to bottom. Um, Season tickets should be 25% cheaper. That's not going to happen, though, is it? I mean, Celtic will sell. Celtic will sell. This is what's. This will be the little love bomb. Celtic love bomb. They'll go because it's been a hard season. We're going to keep season ticket prices at the same price as last season, as this season. There will be no increase in season ticket prices. That's what Celtic will come out and say this season. But anyway, where do we go from here? There is a poll running, and the poll question that has been running since the beginning of the video is can Celtic win the last 7 games? And 77% say no, they cannot win the last 7 games. That's the way it is, isn't it? 22% think yes, they can win the last 7 games. There's nothing to say that Celtic can't, but it's going to be very, very difficult. And we didn't win the last 7 games of last season. That's why we kind of just we fell over the line a bit last season when it came to it. Don't know. Anyway, right. My work team is better run than Celtic. Watch season tickets go up 50% this year, says Liam. Right, that is me done and dusted for this morning. Quiet morning, as expected. It's always the same after a defeat with Celtic. Let's finish off that poll. 78% now say that Celtic will not win the league this season. Do that 22% back the board? We are rubbish. Not after watching yesterday's performance. We're not winning the league. Can you remember a Celtic team with a forward who scored 4 goals? Johnny Kenny is our top scorer in that position. Yeah, mate. It's how bad we are this season. And I still say it goes all the way back to the summer. Whoever's decision it was, and people will say, but Adam Ida's not scored many goals this season at the team he's at. Letting Kyogo go in the previous winter window, then selling Adam Ida was pure criminal in the summer. Bringing in Kelechi Iheanacho after the window closed, remember? We didn't even bring in a striker during the window. It's unbelievable. Anyway, we've got a bit of a break now with International Week. I will be still doing videos in the morning and in the evening where we can talk about what the hell is going to go on in Celtic. I'm going to try and get a couple of guests from... No, I'm not going to tell you. But anyway. Oh, fantastic, isn't it? It's a strange feeling. I will admit that. It's something that we're not used to as Celtic fans. O'Neill says that it's never been done. Yesterday was a setback. Yeah, it was just a little setback. I think the whole season's been a setback. Anyway, try and have a fantastic day wherever you are. Take a couple of hours off of thinking about Celtic, and I'll see you tonight. Anyway, it's the way it is, isn't it? Fucking, we're all feeling the same.